What's up, everybody? Welcome to some live college basketball. Welcome to the Early Edge. I've got this smile on my face because I'm so excited to bring in the stars of the show. We've got lines changing. We got live bet opportunities happening right now as I'm watching Michigan, Ohio State. We got St. Louis, GW. We got Chip Patterson. We got EC. We got Tom Casale, Mike McClure. We got games, a lot of games starting right now, a few games starting right now, a couple games, 3 games underway, one on CBS Sports Network. We got a couple games at 2 o'clock, at 2:30, and then just a giant slate the rest of the day and the night. Chip Patterson, what a day.
I mean, you just got to, I know, listen, Sia and Mike, you've already dealt with my nonsense for too long, but as you can see, we're rocking, we're rolling, got a lot to get to. I like the way this day is paced. You know, earlier we were able to get Wednesday, Thursday, just sort of like a flood of it in the afternoon. We are building to some legitimately marquee games in Kansas City, some fascinating matchups in Charlotte, and so much more across the country. You mentioned the SEC and the Big Ten. Is this a little spicy upset alert with our nation's first president going up against? Hey, how about this one? Just jumping right into it. So Josh Schertz, it's announced right at tip-off that he has been approached and likely going to agree to a new contract to stay at St. Louis. The success that he had at Indiana State and St. Louis made him a possible candidate for some power conference opportunities. I mean, would you have faded St. Louis right there?
Not really.
On the I got my bag straight, kind of like, it's like, oh, I got mine. We're all good here.
So here's the thing, EC, and you can jump in here, and we're going to get Tom and Mike's word on this too, because we've got a few bets potentially that we can make right now. What's interesting about the George Washington-St. Louis game, George Washington up 4 with 13 minutes left and change. George Washington was absolutely murdering St. Louis earlier. St. Louis has sort of crawled back, and now St. Louis is minus 140 on the money line. EC, A, what did you do? B, what would you do?
I mean, do you really want to know what I did, Sia? This is scary. I wish I could share this. So I have a 5-legger. I know McClure's and Casale are going to roll their eyes. Okay, you ready for this? All lines. GW plus 13.5. I have over 145.5 in Ohio State, Michigan. Okay, we're tracking. I have over 128.5 in Missouri State, Louisiana Tech. We might be dicey there. Under 169.5 in Kentucky, Florida. And then finally, UAB money line and over 136.5 in that game. That is my morning Friday parlay, and I'm tracking here a little bit.
But did you take it on the Josh Schertz contract news?
Yeah, I saw that, and I just said, I don't think GW is that great, but does St. Louis really care? They're already in the tournament. You got this Schertz thing. I mean, St. Louis is going to win this game, and I'd probably lay the 1.5 right now, but GW is covering that 13.5.
All right, Tom, I want to bring you in here, and Mike, of course, you as well. First of all, I want to let the live chat know. Give us your questions. I see you, Farzad. I see Joe Neuenfeld, Rick Funcannon, Spony Sports is in here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Bring your questions in here. Bring your picks in here. And if you don't mind, this show is at a new time. Go over to one of our Twitter feeds, the SportsLine feed, my feed, whatever it is. Hit the like button there too. Maybe even if one of you want to retweet it or something, because not a lot of people that are not SportsLine members know this show is happening. We want as many people in here as possible. You don't have to do that. Just a suggestion. Okay, Tom, talk to me about the games going on right now. Is there anything you like right now? And then, Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I would look at this St. Louis game. They, like you said, they were getting killed. Now they've kind of creeped back. I think it's going to be tight down the stretch, but I do think there's some value taking St. Louis. I almost took Michigan today. I just felt like the matchup was there, and they got up like 7-0, 9-0, and I was kicking myself, and now it's 39-35. So that it's 10.5 right now. I kind of think if Michigan was going to win this game big, they would have started out. They would have had a bigger lead at half. I think that game could get interesting as we get into the final few minutes.
I don't hate that at all. So you, just to be clear, you kind of like Ohio State plus the points right now. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I just, these one, like you looked at like Arizona yesterday. Like I'm looking at these top teams, like, and Duke was the opposite, right? Like usually these top teams, when they're arrested, they usually come out and smash right away. Michigan did in the first few minutes, but then the game kind of settled. So now I think it favors Ohio State covering that big spread.
Mike, I apologize. I know you have something in this GW game, and the line's already moving.
Yeah, it's moving. I just, first of all, I love the mascot names, the Revolutionaries. I would take them under. I wish Buckets were here to read that off for me. But yeah, the Revolutionaries under 83.5 on their team total live. That's GW for those not up on that game. But yeah, under on their live team total would be a way I would look to back this. If St. Louis wins this game, I think it's going to have to be locking in defensively a little bit here.
Yeah, they've already cut it to 2. Chip Patterson, go ahead.
Slim Castro is the name to know for GW. Rafael Castro. He's got 4 fouls in this game. If he fouls out, that is going to be extremely problematic. Got to throw some support behind Mike's shout right there.
I mean, with 13 minutes left, you kind of have to. I don't know if he's on the bench or not. I don't have my eyes. Actually, I do have my eyes on that game, but I can't see if he's in or not. You have to sit him for a while, right? With 4.
This is hey, are you Chris Caputo? You know, like, I mean, that is the decision you have to have. Now, I will say GW had to play some extended time without Castro this season. Maybe I think 5 or 6 games. Y'all correct me if you've got it top of mind, but he's a big man and he's a big part of their offensive responsibility. The fact that he's in foul trouble, though, not a surprise going up against Larry Blurd, aka Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, aka, of course, Robbie Avila.
We are bouncing around here. I will say that you can get St. Louis at -2.5, around -120. I'm only looking at a couple of books right now, but I think that's interesting because GW's momentum just completely squashed after squandering a huge lead here. I took St. Louis money line +300 live for half a unit, says Big Cheesy.
Man, yes, so cheesy.
I mean, Mike, I do want to ask you about that. St. Louis came into that game, and we'll get to the other games too. Get your questions in the chat if you have any. Mike, they were down so big early. I don't know if you were monitoring the game, but it did seem like a pretty good time to maybe take St. Louis money line or, St. Louis plus a bundle of points because they were favored by 7.5, 8 points going into this game. What are your thoughts on that when you see the favorite down early on a neutral court?
Yeah, I mean, I think context is always important. Certainly not going to be a blanket statement, but in situations like that at this level, I would have been inclined to grab St. Louis, whether it be with the points or to come back and win outright. But yeah, unfortunately, not just a blanket rule across the board. You see a team down, go blindly bet them. I think in some situations, there's probably more value simply betting the team that's up early and continuing to get the win. So in this situation, though, St. Louis, I wasn't tracking it, but if I were, I probably would have been grabbing them with the points or looking, like I said, with the team total under, still hanging at that 83.5 number. I still would want to go under there at that point.
GW up 3 right now. If you're watching on TV, I can tell you, and we've talked about this before, the TV feed, no matter what feed you have, it's behind the sportsbook feed. So if you really want to know the true score, go to the sportsbook you use. Their live feeds are going to have the updated score.
Or the CBS Sports app, which is fantastic, and we love pushing people to the CBS Sports app.
That's true. That's
Great
true. We have
track scores.
And for the record, we have our sponsor, BetMGM, up on the screen as well. Tom Casale, we've got Kentucky and Florida underway. Of course, Kentucky, a big dog in that game, 11.5, 12 points, I believe is where it closed. It's at 10, it's at 12.5 right now, 13.5 even. It's 10-4. Any thoughts on that game in general?
Yeah, listen, you can't get a good line with Florida anymore, obviously. They just played recently, and that final score was misleading because Florida was up by 20 and kind of took their foot off the gas. And I felt like if they got up today, that was going to be a talking point, keep the foot on the gas. But for me, I passed on this. I'm actually looking at Florida tomorrow and maybe Sunday because we're getting into the we want to run with Florida crowd, and you can't run with Florida. So Vanderbilt's in that group, Arkansas's in that group, Alabama's in that group. Florida beat any one of those teams by 20 for fun. So I'm kind of waiting for that.
All right, EC, any thoughts on this Kentucky-Florida game?
Yeah, I mean, I lean under in this game. I bought it up 10 points just from where it is right now, just because we're in these neutral site games. We talked about that yesterday, on CBS Sports Network. Listen, I don't feel overly comfortable in a Florida game betting an under because this team could score 100. But I think this game is somewhere in the, I could see it like 85-75. Something like that. I still think there's a few points of wiggle room there. This line right now, though, I'm staying away from. I don't have any strong conviction.
GW extends the lead to 5 as we're on the, I guess, the under 12 timeout. Let's go to Michigan, Ohio State. Chip, I want to get your thoughts. I know Tom shared some thoughts earlier as well, kind of liking Ohio State. They've already scored the first 2 points of the second half. This line, just the overall line here, is 9.5. Chip, any thoughts right now on that game?
Yeah, seems about right. It is a big number to cover because of the offensive firepower that you've got with Bruce Thornton and John Mobley. And if you just imagine, I used this phrase earlier today, Sia, but sometimes, especially in these conference tournament games, the game flow gets a little cat and mouse, right? Where, Michigan what is it? Extend the game, and the game keeps getting extended, and the game keeps getting extended. And it is often in a game where you've got a separation like this between teams where, yeah, I do expect at some point Michigan is going to create a multiple possession advantage that it does not currently have. I'm looking at 39-37 on my TV right now. But what happens when Bruce Thornton dribble three? Because he's got that kind of, well, he mostly shoots mid-range. But you get what I'm saying. Offensive firepower of Ohio State makes a backdoor cover possible. I do not want to make an official bet hoping for a backdoor cover. But the reason why I am sort of staying away from laying a big number is that the game script that I can very much see playing out is that Ohio State starts to wear down. Michigan gets some stops. They create an advantage of 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you're basically sweating this based on not true garbage time possessions, but at least possessions in a very different game state from what you would have otherwise.
It's really cool that Ben has these lines up from BetMGM, because you see how they fluctuate basket to basket. And this isn't like a mystery to anybody who follows live betting and follows sports in general. It's just cool to see the lines. As Chip's talking, it goes from 8.5 to 10.5 to 9.5, now back to 10.5, now off the board. Like, there's just a lot, now 11.5, because we've got a score of 44 to 39 early in the second. Mike, what are you looking for in a game like this? What is there a point where you'd want to attack?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing you need to look at, and if you're going to live bet situations like this, you need to understand the context around player foul situation. Like Chip mentioned, a significant player or two having early foul trouble or being, one foul away from that, I think is super important to consider here in these spots. If I had to play something here, it probably would have been Ohio State, catching 10.5. The other thing I would say, we see it in the chat. It's very difficult if you're trying to place live betting like this, to do it truly in game. Waiting for the start of commercial breaks can absolutely be a little bit more beneficial. I think also just simply understanding, again, context around certain fouls, right? So if you know that you know when the media timeouts are coming, so you can understand rotations, like many sharp coaches will substitute someone out, a minute ahead of a planned media timeout, things like that, by an extra minute of rest. There are little edges to be found that way. But if you're watching and trying to live bet based on a shot that was just made on your feed, you are too late for sure.
That's interesting. Yeah, Tom, it looked like you had some potential follow-up there.
No, I was just going to say the thing about fouling too is also how they're calling the game. I know, Mike, I got to mention the Fullerton game. Mike and I love talking about free throw shooting. Fullerton went something like 36 for 43 from the line last night. I know Mike was probably going nuts because he had the under. He still got it. But the officials were blowing the whistle every 3 seconds. I mean, there's nothing. It was such a choppy game. So that's another thing, like early on in these tournament games, for example, if you're betting Houston, Kansas, and they're blowing the whistle a bunch of times early, Houston's in trouble because they're going to hand fight you. They're going to get up in your grill. So those are other things, like Mike was saying, just not only watching the fouls, but how are the officials calling the game?
Tom, did you see the whistle for UConn last night? Or I guess it might have been.
Yeah.
I mean, just a ton of free throws for Xavier. And UConn's already a very aggressive defense. They are a handsy defense. They're almost like one of those old school college football defenses that pass interference on every play and just wait for you to call it. They are a very handsy defense. And I think they do rotate officials within a conference tournament, so you can't count on the consistent whistle. But that was something that's huge for a team like UConn, where I don't know if it necessarily helps me preparing for the game live. However, to Tom's point, you start to see this UConn defense getting hit with a quick whistle tonight or on Saturday or in the NCAA tournament next week, then it's kind of their MO right now, is to have that really, really physical, aggressive defense. Could lead to a lot of free throw opportunities for the other team, as it did for the Musketeers. It was really like some of Xavier's only offense in that loss to UConn was they were getting at the free throw line because of the whistle for, I think, 20 team fouls or something crazy like that for the Huskies. Another thing to keep an eye on.
St. Louis.
Yeah, and Chip, real quick,
go ahead.
just real quick. I just thought UConn is a good example along with Houston, because those are two teams that don't always score a lot of points.
Right.
So if they're putting their opponent on the foul line a lot and they got to cover a big spread, it makes it a little bit harder sometimes.
St. Louis taking a 70-67 lead. I think we got a timeout under 8 minutes here. So they are a minus 850 money line favorite. I mean, that's how quickly these things can turn. EC, go ahead.
See, am I going to have to sweat my plus 13.5 here with a 28 second half turnaround?
GW is fighting. Like, even this is not the first time St. Louis has taken the lead. GW is going to battle. I mean, I think they're going to lose by 8 or 9 points. The way it's trending is just a guess.
I'll tell you, I'm still disgusted about Auburn yesterday. I liked them a lot. Everything was going great. And then a 19-0 run happened out of nowhere, and it was good night.
Go ahead, Chip.
Well, they couldn't guard Nate Ament. I mean, it was just like you talk about another guy who just Tennessee needed to get some offense going, just to send your most talented NBA prospect to the rack. And he got great, couldn't guard him, got to the free throw line a lot, knocked down his free throws. And once Tahad Pettiford cooled off from his absolute heater in the first half, Auburn regressed into a team that loses half the time it plays.
Yeah, GW plus 6.5. I believe 6.5 is the current line. Yeah, in the Ohio State-Michigan game, as that game appears to be still tied. Does anybody? Because we have questions in the chat that I want to address for games A that are going on now, but B games that are going to happen later. So we can address some of those. We're going to be here for probably 40 or 50 minutes. So get your questions in now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. But I did want to ask, because I don't want to ignore games if you guys have something on them. There were a couple of games, I think, that CBS Sports Network game, which was Missouri State and Charlotte. Missouri State playing Louisiana Tech and Charlotte UAB. Just hand up. Does anybody have anything on either of those two games? It's 14-11 UAB over Charlotte and 26-24 Louisiana Tech over Missouri State.
About midway through the first half, had some good looks between the Bears and the Bulldogs over there in Cayusa. And we were getting some misses, and right, that's one thing. If you like to dance with the regression machine, sometimes you get to see good looks, ball don't go in, and you think that eventually over the course of 40 minutes it might catch up. Things seem to have settled as we reach the end of the first half, but I was potentially looking at those scenarios. Seems like a pretty true competitive score right now.
Tom, anything on Louisiana Tech, Missouri State by any chance, the CBS Sports Network game? I will say Big Cheesy likes Louisiana Tech money line, or maybe he just bet it. Their money line right now, for the record, up to is minus 135.
Yeah, I didn't have much in this game. That's a tough conference. Those games are usually pretty crazy and close to the end, so I kind of stay away from them, especially when they're playing on neutral courts.
Mike, it looks like, I'm looking at the chat, it looks like you were on Louisiana Tech, who was a 1.5 point favorite going into the game. You were on their money line pre-flop.
Yeah, on the 1.5, which is where it is now, essentially on the live line, almost halftime. Would feel comfortable playing it at that point, up to minus 1.5 on the spread. Would feel comfortable there. I would also say watch for that one. A minute ago had a very unique situation on the spread to money line. The spread was minus 1.5, minus 105, but the money line was minus 160. Typically a minus 1.5 is going to be like a minus 135. So that was interesting that they've clearly taken it's an indication that they've taken and have a little bit more of a liability on that Louisiana Tech money line.
And in those cases, you would never take the money line, right? Because the price isn't right. You would just lay the points.
Yeah, I would lay the 1.5 versus paying an obviously inflated like minus 160. Like right now, it's actually trading minus 180 on the money line and minus 1.5, minus 120 on the spread.
That's crazy. That's crazy. EC, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys just in general. So Missouri State has lost by 2 and 1 point to Louisiana Tech this season. So they always say it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but especially when you see the first 2 games being this close, would that sway you at all? Obviously not Mike, but Tom, what would you say? Like, does that have any impact, the whole beat a 3 times thing? Beat a team 3 times?
Yeah, I would say, like what you said, those were close. Like, I think if Alabama and Florida played 10 times, I think Florida's going to be 10-0. I really do. I don't think Alabama matches up well with them at all. And they're not going to change the way they play, right? Alabama going to play the way Alabama plays. But when you see like this, so now you're talking about a couple of free throws, a couple of missed shots that decided the game. So I wouldn't say that. I would say it's much harder to win that series 3 times than it would be when a team is constantly blowing another team out.
EC, I am many things, but one of my hats is definitely as a storyteller. What I see is I go investigate the context. It was in the midst of a 7-game losing streak for Louisiana Tech. Both games were, when all 7 games were single-digit defeats. You know, I mean, that's just in a funk, right? That's just in a rut. That's just you can't dig yourself out quite yet. So yeah, I always go look for context. I don't blindly say hard to beat a team 3 times, especially if there's matchup advantages. You know, if there's a reason why, because you have a deficiency in a certain area of your rotation or a deficiency in some area of your game.
So let's get to some games that haven't started yet. And if any of you have and we're going to get back to live looks no matter what in the next few minutes, but if any of you have a live look that is very pressing, just put your hand up or just flat out interrupt me and let me know that now is the time to fire on something. But there are already some questions in the chat about some bigger ticket games like Duke, for example. Duke minus 10.5 against Clemson. Hand up if anybody wants to comment on this one. I mean, Duke really narrowly escaped victory against FSU. I mean, that was a really close game. FSU was winning for a good portion of that game. It does look like the injuries are catching up to them. It looks like this line is really maybe too big. Am I wrong, Chip? I'll go to you first.
Yeah, 13.5 point favorite at Cameron Indoor Stadium about 2 weeks ago. 10.5 point favorite in Charlotte. You know, what's your value for Cameron? So
yeah,
that's a decent translation.
But aren't they down more players now?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So I mean, that's
like, I think that the game against Florida State was a little bit of a matchup situation, just because Florida State's very versatile. They're very deep. You know, they mix and match a lot of different pieces. Duke did kind of control that game. Florida State coming back and giving them a little bit of a scare. I am more inclined to trust. How about this? I am more inclined to trust what I believe to be a high IQ Duke team to look at what happened in that game and make the adjustments necessary on the defensive side to make sure that they don't get carved up by Clemson. A Clemson team, which, by the way, just lost one of its most important forwards to an ACL injury in the very first game of the tournament and will be playing its 3rd game in 3 nights after being up. I know that you guys weren't dealing with the suffering like I was, but I mean, they didn't get off the floor till midnight local. You know, like it was like the game against North Carolina went late. And so while Duke played in the evening session as well, that's another little advantage. I mean, I tell you what, I am not going to be, because I know what John Shire's motivations are, which is probably a little bit more of a fact-finding mission, find out about your team, see who steps up, see the way that you're tested in these conference tournaments. I don't want to be staying up till midnight seeing if Duke covers 9, 10, or 11 points, right? But man, I would not be surprised if they win this thing by 18. Like, of all the different ways that I could see this playing out, I could see Clemson running out of gas, Duke putting them in the chokehold, and this not being a competitive game for a lot of the second half.
So I actually liked the first half look. Big Cheesy was talking about it. I mean, you almost lost. You're going to come out buttoned up against Clemson, especially when that game starts. I could see them putting the clamps on defensively, maybe a first half under as well. I don't want to get everybody's take on this game. So if you have a passionate take, let me know. But I do want to go. So Joe Neuenfeld coming straight out of the sports book. Mike, you go first, and then I'm going to read Joe's comment.
Yeah, someone typed in the chat there, like a no-brainer. I'm on the over in this game. I played it. I made it a lot closer to 140. I know that they've played a low-scoring game together already. I know Clemson has played slow. As Chip mentioned, it's just general fatigue, and I think it'll impact them on the defensive end against a disciplined Duke team. So I like the over here. I think the number should at least be 137.5.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to Joe's comment. Again, I think I don't know what sports book he works at, but I do know he works at a sports book. He says, we took a $500 money line bet on Wisconsin last night against Illinois. He asks if anyone likes that. Tom, I'm going to go to you on that one as I'm dialing up who Wisconsin is playing. Oh, that's the 2:30 game against Illinois. 8.5 is the spread. Your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, I took the over at 154.5. Now keep in mind, I've only given out one total all year, and it was Arkansas, Florida. So as a fan of Seinfeld, I probably should have taken George Costanza's advice and gone out on a high note, because that was 111.77, and it ain't ever going to get any better than that when you bet it over. But when you look at this game, so I think trends matter in college basketball if the coaches have been there for a long time. Like I can tell you how every Gonzaga St. Mary's game is going to go. I don't know who's going to win, but I know how the games are going to go because everyone goes the same way. So these two coaches have been here for a while, and they play high-scoring, fast-paced games. And you looked at Wisconsin doesn't have Nolan Winter today, their big guy down low. I think Illinois is going to get whatever they want near the rim, anything they want. The question for this game, for my bet, and if you take Wisconsin, are the threes falling? Because if they're not, they're going to get blown out. So that's one of those things we talked about live. Watch early. Now, Wisconsin shot the ball well in this gym yesterday. That was Washington. But they need those threes to go in because they have no other chance to cover this game if they're not.
Do you know what I'm going to be looking at from Wisconsin? When Washington started trapping defensively, that they kind of had some bubble guts. So Greg Gard needs to be able, if Brad Underwood does not necessarily put in that type of defense, we know that he has gone to that zone where everyone's 6'9" or taller from time to time, the jumbo package zone. But with a little bit of ball pressure really bothered Wisconsin. And Wisconsin never trailed against Washington. It was never in doubt. But what was a much larger margin got small very quickly with even the slightest amount of ball pressure and game pressure. Will be interesting to see if they try to exploit it. But Tom, you might have had that over out the second that it was posted in the tool. I saw that come through and I was like, oh, hell yeah. That's a play right there. So definitely like that look.
EC, I want to ask you something. I think you might have had a follow-up on that game, but I want to go back to live betting just for a second because Florida was kind of working over Kentucky very early in the game. Now Kentucky has closed it to a 2-point game, 20-18. We're only 10 minutes into the game, but the line is still 10.5. EC, I'm curious, is that appetizing enough for you as they close the gap a little bit early?
No, because I have that game, Sia, ending up, just from my thoughts, ending up right around that 10-point mark. So for me, if I could get the number under 8, yeah, I'd probably look at it. But at this point, Kentucky's playing with nothing to lose. They probably, they're safely in the big dance. Their seed line is probably not going to change a lot. Florida, I would assume they probably locked in a 1 at this point over UConn. I don't know if it's a lock yet, per se. I think Florida has a lot more to lose than Kentucky. So for me, I'm staying away from it.
Mike, any thoughts on that 10.5 or the 10.5 being offered in the Ohio State game? 13 minutes left, Michigan up 5, both 10.5.
Not a ton of thoughts. I had no thought on Florida, Kentucky early pregame. It was just essentially dead on. I would consider in this Ohio State game, I would consider Ohio State's team total under live actually at this point still.
Okay. Mike, I want to stick with you. Big Cheesy Big Cheesy's mentioning the game, the next game on CBS Sports Network, or at least later on, Kennesaw State, Sam Houston. Any thoughts on that? Kennesaw State plus 3.5. And then Tom, I'm going to go to you on that.
Yes, I played under 161.5 there. It won't be fun. Sam Houston wants to play a lot of tempo. I will say I probably have the under in Sam Houston. It feels like every time they play, but it stands out. So I have the game a little tighter than market on the total. So I went under 161.5. Tom?
Yeah, so I bet Kennesaw to win that conference, as I was reminded by somebody on social media this week. That's always my favorite thing is when they remind, like I forgot that I lost that bet, but they brought it up because they were saying watch them win the conference tournament. Now he said, wouldn't that be a kick? I thought they played well against Western Kentucky. I thought that was a tough matchup for them. It's just that you just don't know what you're going to get. Like Mike is saying, like the totals is high. Sometimes Kennesaw refuses to play defense. They don't. It's an effort thing. Like I've watched them a few times this year, and they just give up way too many easy baskets. So again, I think this is one of those things where it's going to depend on which Kennesaw State team shows up. But I think Sam Houston has a pretty good matchup here tonight. I would actually look, maybe you can get that line a little smaller live, but I think Sam Houston gets it done.
I want to point out the other CBS Sports Network game is at half. Louisiana Tech is up 3. You can still, the money line's -175, but the -1.5 is -120. So that would be the direction we'd be going if we liked Louisiana Tech. And we did kind of like them pre-flop. So you have some time if you want to consider that one as it is at halftime. Ohio State, Michigan. Let's see that score. I mean, Ohio State closing the gap. So is George Washington, only down 2. You can get GW +3.5, -135. We did have more questions. We got a lot of people in the chat. Shout out to Scott Kobe, Cleveland Clowns, Sox Nation. Producer Josh is in the chat as well. There was a question about, what was it? I think it was the St. John's game against Seton Hall. Anybody have any thoughts on that? St. John's laying 8.5 points.
Yeah.
Go.
I played an over in that game personally.
Really? See, I would have gone the other way. Why? Well, and I'm not going against you.
Now
again.
I'm definitely going over.
Yeah, I would too.
I created a new game, by the way. Every time Tom and I say free throw, I was going to drink, but now it's more fun when I hear I bought this one up 10.
Anytime he says leg, then we have to.
Yeah.
We got to talk about your parlays, by the way. We have a strict rule in this house that I follow. It's parlays and animals, man. If it's moving or it's a parlay, four legs max. Anything more than 4 legs, I don't want it near me, whether it's an animal or a parlay.
And I get it, but I look at it as a dart throw. I mean, I'm not throwing, my life savings on it. I'm just taking a dart and I'm throwing it at the dartboard and I'm trying to hit the bullseye.
Yeah, so but you throw so many darts, it equates to your life savings. That's what you don't realize over time.
This is what's going to sting. Congratulations, EC. You're just Auburn. No one gives you credit for a hard strength of schedule. We want winners. If you had broken down your parlays, you'd probably have more wins overall. But you're right. You made the schedule tougher. You had a difficult strength of schedule.
I have the stupid philosophy, and I'll own it, of bet less, win more. And see, we talk about it on the golf show where I like to do my tennis legs with golf parlay. I mean, and sometimes those hit, and it's great. And sometimes I waste a lot of money in the process because I can't figure out who's going to win the WTA event at Indian Wells. That's where things get dicey. With that said, I'm throwing the darts today, but I normally agree with what I'm square saying. I know what he's saying. 4 legs.
There was, the other game was, it starts in 25 minutes. The other question I wanted to get to was.
I think Rick Pitino's on a 7-game cover streak in the Big East tournament. Just going to throw that one out there. Second piece of this. While Shaheen Holloway, I don't think has a connection directly to Pitino. Shaheen was an old Kevin Willard assistant. Kevin Willard was an old Pitino assistant. You talk about coaches and trends and sort of the way you view the game. All those things would be something that'd be interesting. But I was watching St. John's yesterday and just thinking about with Zuby Ejiofor and Bryce Hopkins and like Mitchell was on Sweet 16 Elite 8 runs for Texas at the beginning of his career. This St. John's team is flawed. Not the team we thought we were going to have in the preseason, but they've had a lot of experience in big games and tournament play. I think I might like them the rest of the way here tonight, but then also to win on Saturday night.
I want to get to the St. Bonaventure's Dayton question, but Mike, before I do that, GW is now up a point with 1:46 left. They are +120 on the money line. St. Louis -154. Are we looking at anything in that game?
No, I'm mostly looking at locked sportsbook. Unfortunately, when you get this kind of situation in the middle, in the final minute or so, it's mostly going to be locked. Yeah, your positions are kind of set at this point, and now you're just betting on the variance of one shot essentially. So I would not recommend jumping in at this point.
I will say there are places where, as there are places where you can still bet the money line and the spread. And just so everybody knows, St. Louis is still minus 180. So for those on St. Louis, at least you're with the market. It's now tied at 79, as I think St. Louis is at the free throw line. Yep. Kentucky down 6 to Florida. Before we get to St. Bonaventure, Mike, go ahead, because I wanted to see.
I just love that BetMGM thing. It said when it flashed, it was the 39th free throw made. So anytime I see something like that,
they matter, Mike. They matter.
They matter. Yep. People tell you that we're crazy for talking about free throws for half the time.
We're getting into Bam Adebayo territory.
Hey, Sia, I know I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but since Mike was there last night, I want to ask about the court at the Big 12. Now, obviously, we know my rooting interest here in the first game. I am concerned about Arizona. I'm not going to come on here and say play the 3.5. But Mike, in terms of the totals, obviously they're fairly low for both games. Now that the court is a normal court with players not slipping and sliding, would you look at the totals a little differently?
So maybe, but probably not. Just we don't have a big enough sample size. But I have a theory on it. What would your inclination be? Would you say unders or overs?
For me, I would probably lean under on both games.
Okay. I have a slight position on overs personally, but some of that's just watching the way the games have been officiated there. I mean, there was just a ton of free throws in Kansas, Arizona. And I think that we kind of see that. They've kind of set the precedent in the tournament now. And you look at the 4 teams that are left. I mean, Iowa State and Houston, they're going to play physical. Arizona and Kansas. Arizona for sure has got the athletes that I lean over, but I do think it's interesting on the court. I would tend to agree, back to a normal court may support an under a little more, just a little less losing the footing, a little easier to defend. Having said that, I think I'm leaning overs more. Just I think we're going to see trips to the foul line a lot. And I think that these teams we talked about on the Early Edge morning show, I think they could literally be 4 of the final 8 teams in the NCAA tournament if the seeding were to allow it.
I think totals zigged and zagged. Overs were 4-0 day 1 at the Big 12, and then unders 4-0 day 2.
2 and 6.
Okay.
2 and 6 in the last 2 days in the Big 12, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got 82-79 St. Louis. Tom, any thoughts on the St. Bonaventure Dayton game? It was 6.5. It looks like we see 5.5s in a lot of places. So St. Bonaventure taking a little bit of money. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, just real quick. Sometimes I just feel like we try to do too much. Like people don't. What's with the court? I mean, just have a court. Yeah. Put 2 teams on there and play basketball. You know what I mean? Like we just do too much sometimes. Nobody's watching TV to watch the court. In that conference, and I mentioned this in the Discord this morning when somebody asked about the first game, I would probably go, if you get a decent spread, I would probably go with the underdog almost every time. I think these teams are all jumbled together pretty close. Like I do like St. Joseph's because the way they've been playing towards the end of the season, but that's a smaller spread. When you're getting these 6-7 point spreads, I'm going to go with the dogs there because I just think when you look at these teams rated wise, they're all pretty close.
All right, fair enough. I'm looking at the St. Louis game, hoping you guys cash those tickets. Anybody have any live looks right now, by the way? Because if not, I do want to ask about a couple other games. One that starts, I think, at 3:30, as Michigan is up 5. Tennessee Vanderbilt. Chip, I seem to recall this coming up maybe in the context of a total. Your thoughts here? I lean to Vandy here. What are your thoughts?
I think that the outcome of the game, because of how disjointed and sort of flawed both of these teams are, is much tougher. Like I agree with a tight point spread, line them up, pick your winner. But I'll tell you what, I don't know if we'll have a final score. Does that make sense? Like we always talk about your median results and like all the different ways that this game could play out. To me, it almost seems like it would be a 4 to 7 point win for either team, not something that ultimately comes down to the final game. I mean, just look back at what we saw from Tennessee yesterday, where they did have such a horrid start to the game and then were able to come roaring back. We've seen the same thing from Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt in its win against Tennessee had a big 15, 16 point lead and then just kind of fell asleep. Vanderbilt's not a great team defensively, they're a pretty good team. They can be taken advantage of. Jalen Washington does not necessarily overwhelm me as a dominant post presence, but clearly Tyler Tanner is just a walking bucket. And so I was just looking at these two and looking at two very different games in the regular season and just thinking that it was going to be the kind of game where Tennessee, which is not an up-tempo team normally, just gets sped up a little bit. Just kind of the way that Vanderbilt's trying to, get its offense going, get into the flow. I just think that it is a spot where the game state ends up being a little bit more higher scoring. So for those who aren't aware, I think the first game between these two is decided in the low to mid 60s. Second game in these two is decided in the 80s, like 86, 82 or something like that. I think this game plays out a little bit closer to the second one than the first one. I think it's a higher scoring game. Yes, my play this morning was on the total to go over.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I put out on the site, sorry to go against you, Sia. I put out Tennessee money line at even money. That has obviously shifted based on what we're looking at here. My logic, do what you want with it. But the way I looked at it, we saw Louisville and Miami last weekend. They played Saturday in Miami. Louisville won the game on the road, and then Miami got them a few days later. It's kind of that revenge angle, and I love to play that. I know there's not a true gambling, theory on that, proven theory, but I just think these teams played on Saturday. Tennessee lost on senior day at home. I think there's a little bit of a payback angle here, and we've seen the line shift last night. I think it's gone 3 points from when I bet it, when it was Tennessee plus 1.5 last night to minus 1.5, as we're seeing on screen here.
Hey, Taman Lipsey, you don't want to hear this, but Taman Lipsey said in the post-game interview, they got us, we had to get them back, talking about Texas Tech. So I know you don't want to hear that as an Arizona fan who just beat Iowa State. But, yeah, I think revenge angle, if it matters to the players, then hell yeah. We're talking about things at the margin. Like that can be something that matters. And
I'm not laying the 3.5. I mean, I'll put U of A on the money line in a parlay later, but I am not overly confident. I'm not going, yes, this is Arizona's going to win this game. Wouldn't shock me at all if Iowa State won this game tonight.
I mean, we had a pick on the early edge EC on Iowa State. I'm not going to tell you who it was from, but
shame, whoever did that.
Sorry about that. Let's go to Tom. I don't know if you're looking at any live games, but before we get out of here, I do want to ask you about maybe a couple of other games. You seem to have the radar on Alabama, whether you should bet it, whether you should lay off or bet against them. I believe they're still laying about 11.5 to Ole Miss. Your thoughts on that one? Oh, and also Elijah's question, Bama over 89.5 points at plus money.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's going – what Ole Miss has is something that I can't put my hands on. I had Texas a couple nights ago. I loved the play. I thought they were going to smash them. And I mentioned on the early edge the day after, I said they had all the matchup edges. But the one thing that kept going in my head is Chris Beard going to win a couple games with this awful team. You know what I mean? And they haven't trailed in 2 games. And I do kind of think they might run out of gas. But Alabama's defense to lay that many points, here's my number one thing that I always give out on Alabama. Sometimes they start out not super fast. And Nate Oates is a phenomenal halftime coach. Whatever he does at halftime works. I would wait on this. I would see if Ole Miss is being competitive, because if they're going to run out of gas against Alabama, I think it's going to be in the second half, playing that pace if Alabama has it going. I would try to, if you can get a 6.5, if that game is close early, that's kind of my buy point on Alabama. I'm sorry, I just can't lay 11.5 with that defense, but 89.5. I forgot what the exact number is. I counted it up the other night, how many times Alabama has scored 90 plus this year. It's ridiculous. It's like 88% of the time. So the odds are with you.
Yeah, that's what I said this morning. See, I was like, I did all my work. I handicapped the game, didn't even know what the numbers were, but I was like, anything under 90 is green light go. Mm-hmm. It feels like a spot. And I would argue we might have already seen things catch up with Ole Miss, the way that Georgia was able to storm back into that game. No, Ole Miss still ends up winning, but you're not going to be able to, with a team of that talent level, have Malik Dia hitting turnaround, fadeaway, contested jumpers as your offense. So that's going to be something I'm not going to trust.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, everybody should be rooting for Alabama and Arkansas because they can't hang a number. They can't.
I
saw that first game. I saw that first game. Me and Mike were on the show before that game, and I said they finally made a number where I have to go under in an Alabama game. And I'm telling you, that game was over with 12 minutes to go. That's the fastest paced game I've seen since maybe UNLV Loyola Marymount many years ago. I mean, they ran up and down the court, and I'm telling you, from experience, they can't hang a number high enough if those two teams meet tomorrow.
I love the Running Rebels reference, but also LMU with Hank Gathers, of course, rest in peace, and Bo Kimball. That's just permanently etched in my brain, the left-handed free throw. That's just awesome memories. Okay, so here's the thing. We got a couple more questions. I want to remind everybody at 7:30 on Sunday, most of this crew, I can't remember exactly who's on that show, but most of this crew was on a show. So basically, you all know what happens Selection Sunday, 6 to 7, the bracket comes out, 6, 7. And at 7:30, we're going to be breaking down the bracket. We're going to be breaking down first round games and lines and things of that nature. So on the SportsLine YouTube channel. So make sure you are dialed in. Make sure you're subscribed. Your friends are subscribed. Get in here at 7:30 on Sunday. There was questions about, first of all, hand up if anybody has a live look right now. But there was a question about the St. Joseph's, excuse me, -2. It might be 2.5 in some places now as well against Davidson. Tom, I'm going to kick it right back to you. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I liked St. Joseph's back when it was 1.5. I think it's going to be a close game. Again, this conference is going to have a lot of close games. I just like the way they were playing down the stretch. So I'm going to lean St. Joseph's here, but obviously that 2.5 kind of puts it up a little bit. A tight game. Give me St. Joseph's.
It looks like EC, you're going to cover on that GW play. I think it's a final. I'm not 100% sure. And it looks like anybody who took St. Louis in the chat, you're good to go there. Louisiana Tech, Missouri State. Now you can get Louisiana Tech -130 on the money line, although it's escalating as we speak.
See, I don't want to jinx myself, but that parlay I gave you earlier is tracking.
Oh,
we got the under in Kentucky, we got VCU in the alt under, we got the Missouri State alt under, and we already hit I don't want to jinx myself, but hey, 5-legger. Somebody in the chat wants to donate to a charity. If one of those hits, let's go.
Mike, great call on the team total under. That one comes in as well.
That's huge.
Yeah, whether you got 82, 83, it all comes home at 81. Let's go.
I don't know if anybody jumped on Ohio State plus 10.5, but if you did, when we talked about it, that's looking pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of time left, but they're only down 3 points in that one. So that line looked
at this point, Ohio State could win this game.
100%. I don't disagree with that. Did I interrupt somebody? Did we already finish? Tom, you already finished the discussion on St. Joe's, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll just throw this out there. I think Kentucky had their shot. They're hanging on for dear life. That one might get ugly in the second half.
Yeah, down 11. The live look is 14.5. Before we get out of here, Mike, are you going to the Kansas game tonight against Houston? And regardless of that, Houston laying 5.5. Your thoughts?
So I don't know if I'm going yet. It'll be a game time decision, but it truly across the street, so possible. Depends on if EC wants to donate me any showdown winnings or whatever. I paid him last night, by the way, for the first time.
I felt bad for him last night, Mike. I felt bad for him. I felt so bad for him.
I got the luckiest hit.
The 3-pointer was crazy.
I didn't even know, though. With 18 seconds left when we went up that much, I just headed to the exit to walk home, get Chief outside and all that. I did not know until he tweeted at me that they gave up the I guess 2 late threes kind of desperation there.
Did you have 5.5?
Yeah, we had 5. I gave him 5.5 on the.
When we were on the show, I was on the show at night. It was 4.5, so I was thinking 4.5. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we took 5.5. But yeah, I didn't even know until I was out of the stadium getting my dog, and I saw a tweet from EC. I didn't even know.
Listen, I can't take credit. That was a garbage. TCU tried to hand Kansas the ball 3 straight possessions. I literally we talked about it on that show yesterday. I had my money on the send button with 30 seconds left. I'm like, just in case.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna wait at just another second, and they hit a 3, and then they fouled and hit another garbage 3. Total garbage. Yeah. So I'll take the wins where I can get them. Mike, what do you want tonight? Because I like Houston.
I mean, I played Kansas. I don't love it though. I played them plus 5.5. Do
you want me to lay 5.5 here with Houston, or do you want to skip that one?
I'm gonna skip it for now.
Okay.
But we'll see. I was mostly messing with you, congratulating you on a
thank you. A lucky one,
a one-time showdown win.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Now I'll tell you, if U of A plays Kansas tomorrow, we'll get some action going if you want that.
Yeah, we'll have some fun there. I did play Kansas plus 950 though to win the conference tournament, and I think that it wouldn't shock me if we get a Kansas Iowa State final.
I will say this. I don't really get to tout myself as I don't give out many college basketball picks, but on the early edge yesterday morning, I gave out Akron to win the Mid-Atlantic. And that's all of a sudden looking a lot better with Miami of Ohio losing. They're now went from minus 115 to minus 225. So hopefully that one comes in. Tom, you're shaking your head like, yeah, you knew Miami of Ohio, but I know you wanted that. I know you wanted that matchup with Akron.
I was waiting. I've never given out a play here over one unit, and I told everyone if we get Akron, Miami of Ohio, that will be it. And I think I know this is going to sound stupid, but I've been saying I think Akron has had that game circled for months, waiting for the rematch. And you saw last night, they didn't quite have the same giddy up. I wonder if they were a little down like me. We weren't going to get that matchup. We'll see if they come back tonight. But I that's a great bet now. I just wish we had gotten that final.
Chip, real quick here, and then Mike, I'm going to go to you, and then we'll have a final word or a final bet if you all want to discuss that before we get out of here. Ohio State has the lead. It's 62-60 now. Michigan on the money line is still minus 145. Their minus 1.5 is minus 125. Because there's still 5 minutes left. And Michigan is the better team, I guess. But I don't really know that this is bettable on the Michigan side. Any thoughts on taking Ohio State money line at plus 114 or the plus 1.5? No. I could be wrong about my Michigan opinion, by the way. Go on.
No, at this point, I think I'm just sort of rooting for chaos.
Yeah.
So late in the game, prices have sort of flipped. I know, we're sitting here, Cleveland Clown is riding Ohio State plus 650. A lot of people in the chat are excited about it. 5 minutes left in the second half. I think Ohio State absolutely, as I just said, can win this game. And that would be really interesting and fun for sort of handicapping and look at the matchups the rest of the way, because while Michigan has separated itself onto the top tier of college basketball, Michigan at its peak does not make for very much fun March Madness. So, I'll take them getting knocked out, and let's open this thing up in Chicago and see what happens.
Mike, any thoughts in this one?
I was just leaning under. We kind of lost the number and literally lost the opportunity here. They pulled the total. But I liked under 149.5, a minute ago when it was hanging there. Just being tight like this, where it's Ohio State's up, Michigan down 2. Like, yes, you have an overtime risk, but the pace, kind of like that St. Louis game, which, by the way, that St. Louis game live, like we saw a change in total of 10 points in a minute. A minute and a half. This one, to me, it'll be just tight the rest of the way. You obviously have to consider free throws, but I would lean under still. But now it's, like I said, now it's down to 145.5. So I would put it out at this point.
I'll say this. I mean, if you like Ohio State, plus 3.5, I know it's juicy, but you're probably not going to see a better line. Now it's minus 155, so forget about that. But other books were offering that at plus 2.5. So it looks like if you're an Ohio State fan, if you think they're going to win or cover, that BetMGM is giving you better lines on them. All right, let's go. Last word. We'll go around the horn. And EC, I'm going to start with you. Maybe it's a bet you want to talk about tonight that you love. Maybe it's a live play, or maybe it's just something a more macro thing you want to say about today or the rest of the weekend. Before you go and before we go around the horn, I have to remind everybody, get in here at 7:30 on Sunday, the SportsLine YouTube channel, because we're going to have the bracket in our hands. We're going to have the bracket up on the screen. We're going to talk about the bracket itself, but also the first round matchups from a spread and total standpoint so that we can get ahead of the lines before they get absolutely smashed. EC, go ahead. Final word.
All right. I'm going to give you 3 quick ones here, Sia, just because I can't help myself. 2 of them I put in the chat. All right. First of all, I love the Miami, Virginia over 143.5. I don't know if it's a trap line. Both these teams are averaging more than 80 points a game. I feel like this is a 77-75 type of game either way. I don't necessarily have a side on it, but I love that when I put that on the site. All right, I got 2 parlays for you. We're going to call this the Big Ten Moneyline Parlay. Give me Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan State at 2-1. That's plus 200. Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State. And then I got the letter A Moneyline Parlay just because, Tom talked about Arkansas. He talked about Alabama. My Arizona team, and we'll throw Akron, who you guys have talked about. You put those four together. Arkansas, Alabama, Akron, Arizona is plus 270 on the money line. Let's take some shots, right?
All right. I mean, I don't hate it. It's fun.
I mean, you missed the sponsorship opportunity with just AAA. We could have sold that.
Ooh. Yeah, you got to think that one through because we can start shopping those sponsorships, EC, next time. Come up with the triples.
I needed odds. See,
come up with a triple.
Come on.
Yeah, come up with a AAA next time so that we can properly sell that. Mike McClure.
Just enjoy it. It's a beautiful time of year, and watch free throws. I mean, that one game was up to the 30th free throw made. Free throws are important.
Can I just say about free throws? I've never received more hateful comments than I did with my Bam Adebayo tweet, which has over 1 million views, by the way, which I've never even seen before on my page. If you want to see some mudslinging thrown my way, I'm telling you, just go to it won't be hard to find. Go to the Bam Adebayo tweet. It wasn't even like a hating tweet, but that's really how it was interpreted. Anyway, that's for another day. Anytime I think of free throws, I think of Bam Adebayo now. Tom, what's your final word?
Yeah, listen, I know not everyone can get to player props for college basketball. I mean, I live in New York. I understand, and not everybody has had a bookie for the last 30 years named, Vinny Numbers. But if you can get this player prop, it's one I really like. Trey Kaufman-Renn over 21.5 points and rebounds. He had 19 rebounds against Nebraska in the first game. 16 defensive rebounds. Nebraska is one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the country. I think if he gets to around 12 points tonight, he goes over that 21.5 points. It was available at a couple of books earlier if you can find it.
All right, Chip Patterson, close us out with your final word.
Oh, man, it's too specific, but it was a game we hadn't talked about until Tom just mentioned it there. I am fascinated with Nebraska-Purdue. What a game that was. For those who don't remember, this was Purdue having as much of a 22-point lead in Lincoln. Nebraska comes storming all the way back, forces overtime, but in overtime and a lot down the stretch too, Purdue just big boyed them. Rink Mast, the big man for Nebraska, fouled out of the game. Oscar Clough was big. Trey Kaufman-Renn was big. But Purdue has also been kind of skidding to the side right now. And in the final moment, this was incredible. So 78-77 in overtime, 4 seconds left. Nebraska has the ball with a chance to win the game. Jamarcus Lawrence, the Nebraska guard, slips on a wet spot after taking the inbounds pass. We talk about revenge angles and what's going to get players fired up. Fascinated to see if Nebraska, after falling short from a 22-point comeback because of a wet spot, if they've got a little something special for the Boilermakers. So, because I tell you what, Purdue does match up way better against Nebraska, but Purdue macro, big picture, very, very, Matt Painter has not done well against the spread historically over the last couple of years in the Big Ten tournament. Maybe they're fired up to win it. Maybe this is an opportunity for Nebraska to, add something else to what's been a dream season. I don't get clearly, I do not have a play on this game, but I'm fired up for it because of all the different angles that you've got going into it.
Chip, my Georgetown Hoyas are still somehow in the Big East tournament, and they're going to get smashed. I just wonder, are they going to get smashed by 15 or more? I'm not going to bet it either way because it's Georgetown, but Georgetown, UConn, 14.5.
I'm sorry, did they get smashed in either of the first two games?
They did not.
Yeah.
But this is UConn.
But that UConn plays down. UConn's predictive metrics, in my opinion, are not matching UConn's ceiling. Because UConn just sort of it takes a little bit to get the juices flowing for that Huskies team. And the way the Big East is this year, a lot of the Big East didn't provide those kind of games and those kind of stages where they were really dialed in. Now, I'll tell you what, Georgetown's going to be tested because when you are going up against UConn, you've got to maintain your focus and your intensity through all those different sets, right? I mean, what does a UConn offensive possession look like? 27 seconds, and everybody's rolling around, and we got like 14 different screens and down pins and back cuts. And so the idea is Georgetown is not skilled enough or effective enough in terms of their focus to be able to not eventually just give up a wide open layup to Alex Caravan. Tremendous coaching moment for Ed Cooley in what's kind of been a lost start to his tenure. I think if he even plays them tight, it's something that's possible and something that would be viewed at as a success for for a Georgetown fan, but you tell me.
Well, yeah, it would be. I mean, if they lose by like 2 or 3, that would be great. But I mean, it doesn't, in the scheme of things, it's just not going to matter for the program. Let me ask one other thing before we get out of here. And we'll be really quick here because somebody was, first of all, somebody thanked you, Mike, for the, they took the George Washington team total under.
Revolutionaries.
James Barber Jr. took the Revolutionaries under. But conference tournament winners. Does anybody have one that is still available that they think they would be willing to bet? We don't have to go around the horn here. Hand up. Like, does anybody have anything right now that they'd say, "Oh, I'm willing to take that future," and which will be settled in like a day or two?
I like both of the teams in the other semifinal from Duke. If you're looking for an anti-Duke play, Miami and Virginia, I think, are both good enough to be able to beat Duke in a one-off on a Saturday night as Duke's playing its third game in 3 nights with a limited rotation. As buddy, there are some players getting burned right now for the Blue Devils that did not get much playing time throughout most of the ACC schedule. And Virginia and Miami are both deep teams with a lot of interchangeable pieces and really, really good first-year head coaches.
I mentioned it yesterday morning that I thought UVA was going to make a little bit more noise than people thought. So hopefully that is the case. EC, it looked like you were ready to fire.
Yeah, Tom's not going to let me take Arkansas or Alabama on the other side of the bracket from Florida. Are you? No, that's what I would have taken a shot there.
Listen, if Florida loses another game, it's going to be in late March. They will not lose this week. I promise you.
What do you think, Tom? What do you think about a little Arkansas national title flyer, little lottery ticket?
Now, see, yeah, I think the problem with Arkansas is going to be in the SEC is going to be Florida, right? Because it's going to be hard for them. But I do think they're going to be a matchup. I think Alabama and Arkansas, if they get into the right regions out of the SEC, can be tough, right? But you look at, like we were talking about, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, okay? Tennessee wins, they score under 60 tomorrow. You can do all of Mike's first half unders, team total unders. You do them all, right? If Vanderbilt wins, Florida's going to score 100 tomorrow. So then you get to that final game, and it's just going to be teams that don't play defense. Florida will run and gun with you because they're going to score, and they know they're going to get way more stops than you're going to get. So that's why I think get those teams out of the SEC where they don't have to play Florida, like in Arkansas, and I think they can be dangerous.
This is the type of analysis you're going to get on Sunday at 7:30. We're going to be talking lines. We're going to be talking about deep runs, early exits, all of that, 7:30 on the SportsLine YouTube channel this Sunday. Mike, any conference winners on your mind right now?
Just the same spot on Kansas. Still can catch plus 900 to win. I mean, they're talking about winning 2 basketball games, right? And they're playing essentially at home. They've already beaten Houston once. And out of all the matchups there, like it sounds crazy because I think Houston's a phenomenal team. They're extremely well coached. It's the matchup, if I'm Kansas, that I kind of wanted, just because you get a home crowd in this neutral site. It's very much a home crowd there. And so the way Houston plays, like when you have that influence of the crowd and the way it's been officiated already, I think Kansas can live at the free throw line in this game, and just that kills any momentum, and it just keeps them competitive in the game, right? So at plus 900, like I make the number closer to 6-1. Basically they should be what they are right now tomorrow against Arizona, which would mean they won outright as a 5.5 point underdog, right? And at that point, the market would value them a little more, and they'd probably set the line about the same. If they were matched up with Arizona today, the line would be 7.5. But again, if they win and continue to win, it's going to shrink. So yeah, it would be Kansas in this spot, also knowing that teams like Houston and Arizona, their seeding's not changing with a loss today. And then just, again, the nature of it, it's Kansas and Iowa State have a lot of fans, right, at this deal. But the way the games work, it's one session. They don't clear the stadium. So there's only one ticket for all 4 schools to go buy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so, I mean, it's more expensive to get in. I'll pay $700 to sit close to the game tonight to go into this game, because it's passionate fan base, really close to home, like all the things, right? But what you'll see happen late, Kansas fans will be in there piling in. If Iowa State's close to Arizona at all, it's going to be a massive edge for Iowa State in terms of the crowd, because every Kansas fan is going to be rooting for Iowa State in the end of that game. And early, if Iowa State happens to pull it off and win, everyone's sitting there rooting for Kansas to beat Houston because they feel better playing Kansas than they would Houston, right? So it's just a unique atmosphere where you have two fan bases that travel well and play well. They're definitely not the better teams. Like Houston, Arizona, definitely the better basketball teams.
It is one of my favorite things about tournament play.
Yeah.
That's
such a Oh, go ahead.
It's that, and there's just they're playing back to backs. It's something you never do, right? It's not you're not conditioned for it. It's pure adrenaline. Like it's what makes college basketball still so great here.
There were, I don't know if you saw it, but there were a lot of Carolina blue sweaters doing the tomahawk chop at the end of that 7 p.m. game as they were getting ready to watch the Tar Heels. I texted my buddy. I said, there are a lot of people who just got finished pre-gaming in Uptown Charlotte, showed up early for the 9:30, ready to boo Duke.
Almost worked too.
Yeah.
Tom, I don't want to leave you out of this. Did you have a conference tournament winner you wanted to rep, or are you good?
No, I mean, like I said earlier, like when Florida was like minus 150 or whatever, I just don't think the teams in the SEC right now match up well with them. So I think they're going to win it. And then the only other one would be St. Joe's. I just like the way they're playing at the end of the year, and I think that tournament's wide open.
All right. I will say Louisiana Tech tracking pretty well as they're up 5 with 9 minutes left. It looks like Michigan's not in control fully, but they're up 4 with under a minute left. So if you took Ohio State, that cover is looking good, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next Sunday at 7:30. Hope to see everybody in there. Can't wait for the selection show at 6 o'clock. And then we're just going to spin it off right in here and talk about round 1 games and just the bracket itself. It's going to be really, really fun. So make sure you're in here. A big thank you to Chip Patterson, to Eric Cohen, to Mike McClure, Tom Casale, and of course, Ben on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. And a big thank you to you in the chat. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for being part of the experience. We'll see you Sunday at 7:30. Until then, we rest our case.